All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some MLB DFS picks for Tuesday, May 24th. Lineup advice, tips, strategies, best bets, you name it. FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Welcome. We're going to be here for, I don't know, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes, depending on how long you guys want me to stay, depending on how many questions you guys have, which, speaking of, you see the chat box to the right of the YouTube video screen. You guys will drive the conversation. If you have questions about tonight's MLB DFS slate or DFS strategy in general, happy to go in depth about either one of those. We generally get a decent amount of questions, but if there's a lull in the chat and you guys want to talk about some high level DFS stuff, happy to do that too. So let's just jump into it. Before we get started, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Get notified when we go live, upload any new videos, and give us a thumbs up if you like the MLB content. Chris is doing a bunch of videos. Chris is our MLB writer. Bunch of videos every single day throughout the season. So make sure you catch those great slate overviews for most main slates. So make sure you're subscribed and get notified. All right, so I'll just jump into it. If you guys have questions, you want to say hi. If you're watching this, you're just lurking, say hi in the chat. Say what's up. So we got, 11 games on the slate tonight, it looks like. We got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. That's how you count, 12 games. Either way, we got 10-plus games on the slate, which means a couple of things from a high level. One, it means we generally want to, and we normally do this anyways, but we generally want to, on DraftKings, we want to steer towards 5-2-1 stacks. So a 5-man stack of one team in high-risk contests, a secondary stack of 2 players, and then because we have so many options to choose from, no need to force a 3-man secondary stack. Let's get the best one-off player we can find. And for FanDuel, that same concept applies, 4-3-1. 4-man stack of one team, 3-man secondary stack, the best one-off we can find that fits with those groups. And that's historically how we've been profitable on these larger slates. Nice thing is, while you may not think so, we actually have a decent amount of good pitching options tonight as well. Corbin Burns at the top, 10.1K on DraftKings. He ranks really highly in the model. And speaking of the model, let's bring it up. Let's bring up the Occupy Fantasy model, the pitcher's dashboard. And I want to refresh this because I want to show you guys one thing. Since we are streaming this live at 5:30, the slate doesn't start until 7:05. There are a couple of early games at 6:30, 6:40, and you'll notice once you open the model, because it's not filtered to the main slate automatically, you will see the top pitcher does pitch at 6:40. So unless you're playing in some subset slate, you're not going to be able to roster him. But you'll notice that Shane McClanahan has a 24.7 OF index, which is, I think, the highest we have seen all season, which is just insane, going against the Miami Marlins. And I looked at this, I said, why is this? Is it money line super high? No, minus 152. Opposing team total super low? Kind of, 2.71. But it's this ridiculous 1.74 Ks per innings pitch projection that is just through the roof. The model is basically saying that for every inning that he pitches, he's pretty much in line for at least 1, but probably 2 strikeouts. And you guys know Swaglord Ken in the Discord as St. Kenneth, our League of Legends writer. He was on the Emotional Bankroll podcast recently, talk about his betting adventure. He noted in, I believe it was our staff chat, and Chris put it in the Daily Plug today, that this McClanahan over is the biggest edge in a prop bet this season for baseball. Actually insane. And you see Chris in the chat now says, if you're not wagering everything you own responsibly and legally on the overs, you're not going to make it. So, yeah, if you're in a legal sports betting state, or if you're not and you have a bookie that takes props, go bet the McClanahan overs, because this is a spot that the model absolutely loves and is the best spot we've seen for pitcher all season. So I know that's not on the main slate, but for the early viewers here, you guys tune in early, had to hook you up with that, let you know about that fantastic bet for today's slate. Now, if we talk about, let's stick with pitching. And again, this model ranks every pitcher, FanDuel and DraftKings, our proprietary metric. One of the most predictive models we have on the site is the pitcher section of the baseball model. And let's go to the main slate here. And if you've watched our videos before, you watch Chris's videos, you watch our live streams here, we generally talk about that 17 threshold being elite for OF index for pitchers. And we actually have essentially four pitchers hitting that threshold tonight, which means we have 4 pitchers that we should pretty much key around for our lineups. And there is some reason to dig a little deeper or to drop a little lower. But if you're making just a handful of lineups, one to 3 lineups, really no need, especially because the pricing is pretty affordable. And the combinations you can create with these guys allows you to do different things with your lineups. Let's start with Corbin Burns, 21.7 OF index, highest on the slate. That's super elite, obviously. Money line, not that great. So on FanDuel, right, we're not looking, he's not guaranteed to get a win over there, but it's his Ks per innings pitch. It's, I think they get a weather boost as well against San Diego. Yep, 5% boost, 5% park boost. Corbin Burns, and let's go over the DraftKings. Let's see really quickly. You'll see that he got pretty dinged up last time. 2 home runs allowed to Atlanta, 10.1 DraftKings points. But before that, 20-plus points in at least 6 straight outings. Corbin Burns, high floor, high ceiling tonight, like him in all contest formats. Now, the next one is pretty interesting, at least in our model. Let's go back to the pitchers. And Dylan Cease against the Red Sox, who have been red hot. 18.2 OF index. That's pretty nice. I mean, that's on an average slate, we would be all over this. 9,800 on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel. Does have the higher money line than Corbin Burns. Lower team total, higher K per innings pitch projection. And you may be asking, if he has all these things in his favor, why is he ranked below Corbin Burns? And it's this, his StatCast data. Can you guys see this on screen? Let me make sure you guys can see it on screen. Yeah, you can. Okay. So for those of you that use the model consistently, you know that these final 2 columns are our StatCast data. It looks at the previous 2 weeks of data for batted ball distance allowed, exit velocity allowed. These are rankings. And out of all pitchers in the major leagues, only 80 have allowed a harder exit velocity allowed than Cease over the past couple of weeks, and only 41, and this includes relievers as well, so tons of pitchers in this sample. Only 41 have allowed balls to be hit farther than Cease. If you look at this slate in particular, Cease ranks in the bottom 6 as far as exit velocity allowed, second worst qualifying pitcher for batted ball distance. So yeah, he has a lot of Vegas metrics in his favor, has the K's upside in his favor, but there's a chance that Boston blows him up here. So just understand the risk if you do decide to roster Dylan Cease in your contest, probably reserved for high-risk contests only tonight. Remember, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to answer them here. Probably here till 5:50 or so, maybe 6 if the questions start rolling in. Sonny Gray is the other one that Chris and Troy, who is our other MLB writer, they highlighted in the plug today. Sonny Gray, 6,800 DraftKings, incredibly affordable. Field recognizes this. Probably going to be the most popular pitcher on DraftKings, 38% owned. Now, these are pretty volatile spots historically, right? But I will say, a lot of times when we have a high-owned, cheaper pitcher, they don't rank as highly as Sonny Gray does. Normally, we'll see those guys in that situation. They'll have, I don't know, maybe a 14 OF index. Normally, they're like 13 to 14, maybe 12, somewhere in that range. But Sonny Gray's elite, 17. Our model is basically saying he should be priced way higher. It's not just a slate specific, he's a value on this slate. No, he should be priced kind of like Cease and Gossman are tonight. That's what our model is saying. Minus 250 money line. Lowest team total on the slate, opposing team total? Yeah, lowest opposing team total on the slate. He's got the Ks. Was he first? No, second on the slate in Ks per innings pitch projection. I mean, everything lines up. Team totals dropping. Like everything you could possibly ask for. The ownership's not great, but as we've talked about in the show, Chris has talked about in the videos, I've talked about in the live streams here. Ownership, just eat it at pitcher in all contests. We see the small field GPPs, we see the large field GPPs. Top 1% lineups eat the ownership at pitcher more often than not. So don't be afraid to play Sonny Gray tonight. Don't let the ownership scare you off. He's a fantastic play. Honestly, if you're playing tonight, and I think this was advocated for in the plug, starting with Burns and Gray is easily the top route you should go. Now, maybe you can't fit Burns. I understand. And there's a little bit of volatility in his performance against San Diego tonight. Gossman, another great option if you want to save, $600? He's 9,500 on DraftKings, 9,400 on FanDuel. Now, the line is moving against him a little bit. K per innings pitch, not nearly as high as some of these others we've discussed, but a relatively safe option. And you see, opposing batters are not hitting the ball hard or far against him in recent weeks. So Gossman, another great option. So really it's these top 4. Obviously, below them, Blake Snell, he's only making his second start of the year. There's some question marks about how long he could possibly go in this outing. So that's super high risk. Gallen is Zach Gallen, right? Yeah, low opposing team total, great money line, probably pretty safe. Not sure of the upside there. And then we have guys like George Kirby. Like it gets dicey after Gossman. These 4, just stick to these 4 tonight, unless you're mass multi-entering, and you'll be fine. So. All right, 541. You guys have questions? Throw them in the chat. Say hi. people are watching. Don't be rude. Say hi in the chat. Say what's up. Let us know that you're in here. You stopped by to watch the video. We appreciate you as always. So say hi in the chat. Ask questions. Maybe we'll do a giveaway. First person to ask a question, we'll give something out. So someone ask a question, get the ball rolling. If you ask you know what? This we'll do. If you ask a question in the chat before the stream ends, you'll be entered in a giveaway. I'll announce it in Discord later. Join our Discord. Click the join button below this video. So if you haven't asked a question already, ask a question. Be entered into a giveaway. All right, so talked about pitchers. Let's move it over to stacks because that's where it gets interesting always, right? So let's go to the stack dashboard. Ranks every stack. OF index, isolated power, weighted on base average. Shows the betting market data, projected ownership as well. So let's do a little refresh here. Make sure we get the latest lineups because remember, the model takes lineup data. We have projected lineups, and then once the starting lineup updates, the model updates as well. That's why it's so accurate. And we see here, we see two teams stand out in ownership. Right, we have the Dodgers 87%. We have the Angels 80%, and I'm looking here at the DraftKings column. FanDuel, they are in the same area there. New York Yankees, because of the pricing over there, they'll be high as well on FanDuel. And I think the Yankees will be relatively high on DraftKings as well. I actually think Arizona might end up a little more popular. Minnesota could end up a little more popular. We could see this a little bit flatter, but these teams that you see at the top 5 be the most popular teams. So there we go. Ask for said we're going to do a giveaway. We get the questions rolling in. So let's see here. So Matt says, just go back to pitchers really quickly. He says larger pool of SPs tonight in MME. I actually think I would go smaller pool. I think those 4 guys I talked about. Let's go back really quickly. Like these 4 guys, I would go heavy on them. Burns, Cease, Gray, Gossman. Maybe mixing some of these guys right down to maybe Fried. I guess if you want to go lower, you could if you think there's a reason to play those guys. But for me, I would go heavy on pitchers in MME. We just had this conversation in our Discord actually with Matt, who won the 50K last week. And yeah, I think if you play 4 to 6 pitchers, you could just rotate a bunch of these lower owned stacks in there because the field's going to condense on those top 5 stacks, maybe top 3, and a bunch of stacks are going to be less than 5% owned. And there's one in particular that I really like, so stick around. I'll talk about that in a second. Kevin says Kirby might be sneaky. Yeah, I agree. So Kirby is just 6K. This is George Kirby for Seattle. 6K, minus 177 money line. He's 18% owned, so not 1%, which is generally a good thing when we're trying to pick pitchers for our high-risk lineups. Line's moving in the favor. Low opposing team total. Almost reaches the K per innings pitched threshold. When I was updating the model this morning, I noticed that his projected innings pitched, not bad, right? He's not some guy that we have to worry about going 3 to 4 innings. Should hit 5+ innings. And at 6K, that could hit his price tag. So it's one of those things. If somehow Sonny Gray doesn't hit value and Kirby does, now you're ahead of the field. So I could see that for sure. So I appreciate that thought, Kevin. All right, going back to the stack dashboard. Let's see here. So LA, New York, the Dodgers, Minnesota, Arizona. Those are the 5 teams. Like that group of 5 will be the most popular. LA, both of them. Dodgers and Angels will probably be the highest owned. I think Minnesota and Arizona can get up there as well. Yankees definitely on FanDuel. So it depends on your risk tolerance, right? If you're in one of those, if you have the risk tolerance up, I'm never going to play a high-owned team as my primary stack, and I understand that. I don't know if any team will get that highly tonight, but for me, if you're just playing that macro that I talked about in Neil Orfield's podcast last week, then that would include these 5 teams. But there's one team that sticks out in particular. And if you read the plug, which I've mentioned many times, the link is in the description. If you're not a member, it's at occupyfantasy.com. Our writers, Chris and Troy, they break down the top plays, pitching, batting, stacks, lineup-specific strategies for different contests. And they throw in the correlation charts that we update, I think, weekly at this point. And we see that OF index is a great predictor of fantasy performance for stacks, right? And in our stack dashboard, we have cumulative OF index for stacks for all 9 hitters. Weighted on base average is right there with it, which is, if you're not familiar, just Google weighted on base average. It is an advanced metric, and it basically weighs getting on base, walks, hit by pitches, with the quality of a hit, singles, doubles, triples, home runs. And that's incredibly predictive. And especially at this point, almost 2 months into the season, team total. Vegas takes millions of dollars a day on games. Unsurprisingly, the team total is pretty predictive of performance. So really, when you're stacking teams, the most ideal situation is when you have a team that ranks highly in all these categories: OF index, isolated power, weighted on base average, team total. Maybe not isolated power as much, right? It's more high risk, but weighted on base and team total. You have those three, and a team is highly ranked in those three categories. You're looking at a pretty good stack for whatever contest you're entering. Now, if you look over and see that team has a lower ownership compared to some of the top teams on the slate, now we're cooking for high risk contests. And there's one team in particular, you might have guessed it by now, that I'm incredibly shocked at their ownership because they rank highly in all those statistics. So let's sort by OF index. That team, as you may have guessed, is Atlanta, the Atlanta Braves. Second highest OF index on the slate according to our model. So our predictive model that uses over 100 different metrics to predict performance has Atlanta as a second ranked stack. All right, great. We'd love to see that. We also want to see it line up in those other areas. Well, we look at weighted on base average. They have the 7th highest weighted on base average. So it's not like they're home run or bust, right? So top 10 in weighted on base average. That's fine enough for us. Team total, 3rd highest team total, right? Everyone wants to play the Dodgers and the Yankees, Arizona because there's some values and the catcher's leading off, Minnesota, Angels, right? But Atlanta, 3rd highest team total. And the reason it's the 3rd highest team total is because bettors or sharp bettors, someone out there has betted up like crazy. Team total move looks at what the team total opened this morning when sportsbooks first released the lines until now. They have the highest team total move, plus 0.79 runs, nearly a full run increase for the Atlanta Braves. Next closest team, the Mets, plus 0.39. So we have a team, a stack, number 2 in OF index, number 7 in weighted on base average, number 3 in team total. Highest team total move by far, one of the biggest you'll see all season. Just 15% cumulative ownership on DraftKings, just 19% on FanDuel. You'd love to see it. Atlanta, perfect high-risk stack tonight. So we go to the batters tab. Let's refresh it here, make sure we got the latest hitters, latest starting lineups. And we go to Atlanta. I mean, we have Acuna, Olsen, Albies, Azuna, Duvall, Riley. All these guys. Look, the highest owned on DraftKings is Ronald here at 4%, 6% on FanDuel, if you can stomach the extra 2% on FanDuel. All these guys less than 5%. I mean, sign me up. Probably the best high-risk stack today. Brandon's in the chat. What's up, Brandon? When a team has as much movement in Vegas as the Yankees, do you think it makes sense to be lower than the field even if they rank well in OF index? So, yeah, let's go back to this here. OF index, Yankees. Well, the Yankees rank low anyways for our, at least compared to the field. We have them outside the top 10 in OF index. We have them outside the ISO. They're probably a pretty high floor stack though, right? Like smaller contests, right? Or maybe you want some, you feel like you need some safety, however much safety you can get with a game with as much variance as baseball. Yeah, Yankees, number 1 weighted on base average, number 2 team total. But yeah, someone out there sees what the model's seen because the team total has dropped a half a run. And you figure Judge had the 2 home runs yesterday, maybe a little bit of recency bias there. They're significantly owned, maybe not as high as some teams, but they'll carry some ownership. So yeah, I think you're around on the right track, Brandon. The model doesn't like it as much as the field does. Someone out there in Vegas is moving this team total down. So yeah, you have that alignment. I think it makes sense to go under the field or fade them entirely, for sure. So we'll go back to Atlanta really quickly. So it's nice because, all right, we got a second baseman. We know it's a tough position to fill. 3 different outfielders. A bunch of guys in that 4.7 to 4.9 OF index range, which means it's flexible. So we can look to see which secondary stack is the best, and we can move these guys around. If our secondary stack that we like has a catcher in it, we don't have to use d'Arnaud. We can use one of these other guys. So lots of options, a little bit of flexibility. So yeah, just to reiterate here, Atlanta probably the top high-risk stack that's not going to carry a ton of ownership. All right, guys, 550. Talked about the top stack, top pitchers. Talked about the most ownership. You guys have additional questions, throw them in the chat. A couple more minutes, I'll stay around. Make sure you subscribe. Chris is going to release the videos the rest of the week. Basically, for the schedule for MLB is if there's a main slate at 7 p.m., Chris releases the video early in the morning, 5 to 10 minute preview, overview of the slate. If it's a Tuesday or a Sunday, we'll do a live stream instead. So make sure you're subscribed to know that. And give us a thumbs up. Lets us know we should continue to make more MLB content. We always appreciate that. No UFC this week, unfortunately for me. So we're off there. PGA, big contest after the championship last week. No UFC. So get in if you want some more weekly action. Play some PGA contests this week. The Daily Plug by Nirmata will be up later tonight. And yeah, I think that's it. as far as future content goes. USFL, Chris has been crushing the daily plug there. That'll be out probably late Friday night, early Saturday. I think the first game's Saturday morning, so be on the lookout for that as well. Matt says, can you go over the 5-2-1 approach on larger slates again quickly? Yeah, sure. So let me get a drink of water here. So 5-2-1. For those who aren't aware, you may be saying, what the hell is 5-2-1, right? That just means 5 players from one team, 2 players from a secondary team, and then 1 player from a third team who's not related to those other 2 teams entirely. And really, what I'm thinking of, let's go to the DraftKings really quickly. And let's just say we want to go Atlanta. And we'll go with the 2 pitchers we were talking about. Not Cease, Sonny Gray. Where's Sonny Gray? There he is. Okay. So, first of all, we're playing high-risk contests, right? These are the 2 pretty popular pitchers. But remember, the Atlanta stack we were talking about, one of the lowest owned, we can play popular pitchers with them. No issue with that. So, excuse me. So go back to Atlanta. All right. Ronald, Matt, Ozzie. Let's go. Those guys are in a tier above the rest. 1, 5, 6. Let's get those guys in there. So let's go to Atlanta. Hitters. Acuna and Albies and Olsen here. Okay. Now, the one thing I will say that we have to note here, batting order, 1, 5, 6. So we'll need a 3 or 4 hitter in here to get this correlation. And so Ozuna hits 3rd. That makes sense. Duvall hits 8th, right? Different ways. There's different ways to play it. What I would do, and this transitions to what T Nasty is asking in the chat here, the building is not giving me any Atlanta stacks. What is the best way to make the builder build Atlanta stacks? Great question. So what I would do, if I had access to the builder, which I do, help build it, run Occupy Fantasy, so naturally I have access. I would go in there, and in the stack settings, I don't have it pulled up here, I can't pull it up, but in the stack settings, you can create a team-specific stack rule. Do Atlanta, minimum 4 batters, max 5 batters, and then set the minimum exposure to 15, 20, 30%, whatever you want it. That'll tell the builder, give me at least this amount of Atlanta stacks. And by doing that, that can go back to Matt's question and say, which teams pair best with Atlanta? Because when you have the flexibility like we do here, it's nice, but it can be a little bit tricky and overwhelming to try to hand build this to see which other stacks fit well with Atlanta. So let the builder do the hard work for you. So go to stack settings, set a minimum exposure to an Atlanta stack, and let's see and then run it. See what it spits out. Which teams are pairing most with Atlanta? Which players are being paired most with Atlanta? Which Atlanta players are being used the most? And I would do that the best. Now, as far as the one-off, there's a couple of different ways to play it. What we see gets over-owned as a one-off in MLB are super cheap leadoff hitters. So let's see if there are any tonight. Just an example. Order 1. DraftKings ownership. Maybe Aaron Hicks, right? Ranks okay, 5.1 OF index. Miles Straw is another one, 3,400. But these guys get over-owned just because they're cheap and they're leading off. So I don't play them as my one-off. Other ones are super cheap catchers. They generally don't get there that often, right? Like $2,500 catchers on DraftKings. Really what you want to do for your one-off, guys that rank highly in OF index, top half of the batting order, just great overall plays that fit in with the rest of your stack, right? You don't really want to punt the final position unless it makes sense or unless they're low owned. But really it's the one-off because it's a 12-game slate. You're trying to find that one hitter that's going to score really well without the rest of his teammates. That's your goal to help you get you there in high-risk contests. So 5-man stacks, the secondary stack that fits with the positions and batting order the best, and then the best one-off that fits with them by OF index. Hope that helps. And T-Nasty says, thank you, sir. Yeah, and T-Nasty, if you have any further questions about that, hit us up in the Lineup Builder channel of the Discord. Happy to help you out there. I've had that issue before many times where it's like, I want to use this team, and the builder doesn't want to use it. You have to specifically tell it to use it, and then you'll be good to go. All right, 5:55. That'll do it for the show. We appreciate you tuning in as always. I'm Brian at Brian Jester FF, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Any further questions, join the Discord. Click the join button below this video. Chop it up. Other members of OccupyFantasy.com. Talk with staff. Invaluable resource because Minnesota Matt in there, he won $50K last week. He was discussing strategies for lineup builds today in Discord. People were picking his brain. Obviously, other sports in there as well. Super valuable, so make sure you join. Subscribe, get notified when we go live, upload new videos. Give us a thumbs up. We appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy. Occupy Model, Lineup Builder, Daily Plug, all available. OccupyFantasy.com. As little as $7 a week. All links are in the description below. So, Appreciate you listening. As always, good luck on tonight's MLB DFS slate.